Danny Swift Garcia defeats Jose Benavidez Jr. via majority decision. Now, a few people I was seeing had an issue with the decision, saying that, it should have been a unanimous decision. I did think that Danny Garcia won the fight and that it should have been a unanimous decision. It just shows that, there are shenanigans that can go on in boxing, but thankfully the right man won in Danny Garcia. Now, initially, when I heard that Danny Garcia was moving up to 154 pounds, I was quite skeptical. I was thinking, he's moved up in weight classes a couple of times. So is he moving up in weight class because he genuinely wants to be a champion? Is he looking for big money fights? He is a prize fighter. Is he a little bit lazy and doesn't want to cut the weight? No. He answered all of those questions. He looked very good in there. He looked very comfortable. And I guess it was just a case of 147 pounds is just too much to handle. Too much weight to cut for Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia fought more like a boxer puncher in this fight. He wasn't married to one philosophy of fighting. Normally, you see him counter punch, and some people can say, well, he doesn't let his hands go enough. A little bit similar to Adrian Broner. Especially in the Errol Spence fight. He was adamant, in his style that, I just want to counter punch Spence, maybe try and catch and shoot. He didn't really offer much else. And this was against an Errol Spence who, had a layoff from the ring. He had just come back from the car accident. He didn't even have a tune-up fight, and he, dispatched of Danny Garcia quite easily. But Danny Garcia was able to fight a good level opponent in Joseph Benavidez Jr., and he comfortably outboxed him, in my opinion. I felt like he did get caught at times. Maybe he didn't get his distance right. He was in range. He wasn't using enough distance control to get out of the way of Joseph Benavidez's punches, but he was able to take them well, and he showed that he does have good punch resistance. This is someone who has pretty good punch resistance. We've never really seen Danny Garcia be hurt badly, and he showed a good chin in the ring, in my opinion. He also threw a lot of combination punches, and we saw how explosive Danny Garcia can be. He wasn't headhunting, he was going to the body and then he was coming upstairs, or he would go upstairs and then come down to the body. So he had very good punch selection. And at the elite level, that's very important because guys can figure you out really quickly. If you're someone who is constantly headhunting, well, the guy will take that into account and say, oh, well, this guy's only headhunting. He won't go to my body, and he'll be able to set traps and put you in very bad positions. So it's important to vary your punches, vary your offense, and constantly be unpredictable. You don't want to be someone who, is doing the same thing over and over again, because a good fighter will eventually figure you out sooner rather than later. And for Jose Benavidez, he just was not able to establish any rhythm in the fight. He landed a couple of good shots on Danny Garcia. Like I mentioned before, Garcia showed a great chin. But I was just shocked how he was just completely unable to establish his rhythm. He didn't look like he carried a lot of power. He was getting hit quite regularly, and he was doing a lot of taunting. And I thought it was just a little bit excessive, considering he was losing the fight. I understand if the fight is competitive, or you're even winning the fight, you're winning the fight by a considerable margin and you start taunting your opponent. But this was a person who was losing the fight yet was taunting. Very strange, in my opinion, from Benavidez. But what Garcia really needs to be careful with is understanding distance, because if you stay in range, you can really get caught by a bad punch. They are guys like Sebastian Fundora, who is a very, very dangerous fighter, in my opinion. He's someone who can box very well on the inside and the outside, especially considering his, how tall he is and the length of his arms. I mean, I find it incredible how well he can box on the inside. Obviously, he's not going to want to stay there all fight. He's going to want to keep you at distance. But he is someone who could hurt you if you're not in a good area with it or good vicinity in the ring. You need to position yourself in the best possible area to avoid getting hit and to be able to catch your opponents and, catch them off guard and really spring on them. And it didn't help with his upper body movement because Danny Garcia's upper body movement looked a little bit stiff for me. Obviously, again, I will mention, he's had a long layoff. I think he's fought Spence. When did he fight Errol Spence? I think it was the end of 2020. I think it was like December 5th, 2020. I don't remember him having a fight after that. So, that is a long time he's been out the ring. So, you could forgive him for that. But, yeah, he's definitely going to need a lot of upper body movement because he looked a little bit stiff. You would like to see him look a little bit more fluid and be able to roll with punches and so on and so forth in order to have more success and to get hit less. Because somebody like a Jamel Charlo, he's a very big puncher. He's very dangerous. You don't want to be stiff. You want to constantly be moving your head off the center line, have good lateral movement, good footwork, so you don't get caught. So yeah, that was definitely one negative. The fact that he probably got hit a couple too many times, although he has had a long layoff. His upper body movement didn't look as fluid. To be fair, Errol Spence in the Danny Garcia fight, his upper body movement didn't look anywhere near as fluid as it was against Sean Porter. And then, once he fought Yordenis Ugas, Spence, he was amazing. His movement was as good as it's ever been. He was relentless in that fight. So maybe it is just the ring rust. But yeah, the main thing that Danny Garcia did well is he wasn't, infatuated with the idea of just counter-punching his opponent. He understood that he needed to do different things and present different strategies in order to beat Benavidez. It's not just trying to catch and shoot. He was a lot more high volume in this fight than he was in the Errol Spence fight. He was quite emotional post-fight, talking about anxiety and so on and so forth. And I did make a video talking about how I do believe that, he probably had issues with anxiety and so on and so forth. Well, it looks very, very evident now if you look at his post-fight interview. Obviously, Errol Spence Jr. came out and said, he's not having these excuses about why Danny Garcia lost and so on and so forth, and that him and Angel Garcia should stop talking about why they lost to Errol Spence. And whilst I can understand why Spence is frustrated, he doesn't want his win against Danny Garcia to be detracted from, considering that, he came back from his car accident, he had a long layoff, he wants full credit, and he does deserve full credit for that. We shouldn't take away from what Spence did in the ring that night. But it does seem believable, the story about his anxiety and so on and so forth. So let me know what you guys in the comment section below think about that fight. Were you impressed with Danny Garcia? Do you believe he can become a, 3-time world champion? That would really be an incredible achievement, holding, belts in 3 weight classes. So if he can do it, credit to him and good luck to him. Alright guys, peace.